Hi guys, and welcome to another weekend, to another Friday, and the live digital show, where we've got you all the latest news from the automotive world, both domestic and international. Now, in a few moments, we will be joined by Tata Motors' new global design head, Martin Uhlrik, and looks to be a fairly interesting conversation. In the meantime, do keep your questions rolling in the comment section, and we'll get him to answer a few of those in the show soon. But before we go ahead with that, let's get to what's bringing us the meat and potatoes on this weekend. This is the one, this is the big story. This is Yezdi, who's come back into the market, and not with one, not with two, but three new motorcycles. Of course, single entity, but three different styles, three different characters. We've got the Roadster, we've got the Scrambler, and let's see everything else, and the Adventure motorcycle as well. So we've got Chris, who went and rode those three motorcycles, and he's got us details on each of them. So let's hit that story ASAP.
So we are out here today to test ride the three Yezdi bikes which were recently launched. So we have the top of the line Adventure, the flagship model, the entry level bike which is the Roadster, as well as the mid-spec Scrambler. So we're out here with the first of the three Yezdi models that we're going to be riding today, and it's the Yezdi Scrambler. Now this to me is the most important or the most unique proposition from Yezdi at this particular time, because there currently is no other Scrambler motorcycle in the market at this particular price point. Now this bike costs around 2,05,000 rupees, ex showroom of course, and the next closest Scrambler will probably cost you in excess of 10 lakh rupees.
The Yezdi Scrambler is a very handsome looking machine. It looks like a motorcycle that's more expensive than it actually costs. It rocks the Scrambler look with its round headlamp, the offset round instrument cluster, that wide handlebar, the narrow tank, the rib seat, those flat side panels, and even those sizable spoked wheels. Though the twin exhaust cans are a bit low slung and can get hit when you gun the bike over some rough terrain. Even the open welds on the heat shields over the stock twin pipes did look a bit suspect. The Scrambler also gets 3 ABS modes and even a USB and Type-C charging socket, features that are standard fitment on Yezdi's flagship adventure bike, but those which the Roadster misses out on. The Scrambler also doesn't get Bluetooth connectivity and turn-by-turn navigation. Things that are unique to the Scrambler are the spoked wheels and tyre setup, which is a 19-inch front wheel and 17-inch rear, shored in 100 and 140 section tyres respectively, the display unit, and the rib seat. Now all the three Yezdi motorcycles that we're riding today house a very slick 6-speed gearbox and the same liquid-cooled 334cc single-cylinder motor. But the three bikes' engines come in different states of tune to complement their individual character. The Scrambler's engine, for instance, is tuned to produce a higher amount of torque at low RPM in comparison to the other two Yezdis, but its torque curve is rather flat compared to the other two. The result is that it feels a bit jumpy when you initially set off, but the longer you ride it, the more you get used to it. But even still, the steering of the test bike I rode wasn't very light in comparison to the other two, and this could prove to be a bit tiring over a relatively long off-road stint.
Now, after riding the Yezdi Scrambler both on the road and off it on short stints, a couple of things that I found out about this bike is the fact that, okay, first of all, off the road, well, it's a nice fun bike to ride. Of course, the suspension is a bit on the stiffer side, so it does tend to get a little choppy over the rough stuff, but the tires hold up really well, both the front and the rear. And the fact that you can switch the ABS to off-road mode, which disconnects the ABS at the rear, well, that's a real plus point of this bike. Yes, it's a very predictable, manageable bike. The handlebar is nice and wide apart, so yeah, it's a fun bike to ride. The tank is nice and narrow as well, so standing up is not an issue. The only downside is my hands kept hitting the mirrors every time I stood up and gave it the beans. And when I hit a couple of rough patches, yeah, my hands took a bit of a beating with the mirror, so I had to adjust them a bit. On the road, yes, once again, the suspension is a bit on the stiffer side, so it does tend to get choppy over the rough stuff. And even the small bumps, well, you'll really feel it all reverberate through the handlebar and even the foot pegs at higher RPM. As a Scrambler motorcycle at this price, well, it's a fun motorcycle to ride. So now we're out here with our second Yezdi motorcycle for the day that we're going to be testing. It's the Yezdi Roadster. Now priced at 1.98 lakh ex showroom of course. This is the most affordable of the 3 motorcycles that have been launched by Yezdi last month. And this is a completely road-biased motorcycle. As you can see, it's the only one of the 3 that come with alloy wheels. The caster angle is the steepest. It's around 29 degrees compared to the others. The wheelbase, it lies in the middle between the Adventure and the Scrambler as well. And most of what you see on this motorcycle comes as standard fitment, bar the crash guards up front and the headlight guard as well.
Here, the single-cylinder motor makes 29 PS of power and torque as well, and this motor just loves to be revved. But like with the others here, it can also tend to get quite loud at higher revs. The brakes here, just as with the other bikes, performs very well at shedding speeds rapidly with the ABS, while I found that the tires hold up very nicely on all road surfaces, even some loose gravel too. The Roadster is a very easy bike to ride, and although it's rather comfortable, I found the suspension to be stiffly set up, which made the bike feel more at ease at higher speeds rather than at low cruising speeds. However, the twin rear shocks can be stiffened or softened as you like. Cruising at 80 kmph at around 4250 rpm was a cakewalk. But once you hit triple digit speeds, the engine can get a bit loud and feel a bit strained. And that's when the vibrations really kick in. Even with its tall gearing, pulling off an overtake on this bike at anything below 100 kmph will never be a problem.
So this is a roadster motorcycle, and it's not a complete cruiser motorcycle, so to speak, because the riding position, of course, it has decently wide handlebars, but the foot pegs once again are slightly rear set, so it'll have you in a slightly more sportier riding position than you would usually assume on a regular cruiser. As a whole, this bike comes together really well, and it definitely has its own character. So as far as the Roadster's design is concerned, well, it looks like a very neat motorcycle altogether. It comes together really well. Of course, there are some modern aspects to it as well as some neat retro touches. As far as the modern touches go, well, you have alloy wheels, which the older bikes, the older Yezdi models didn't come with. And then again, this model is liquid cooled, which the older bikes were all air cooled. As far as throwbacks towards the older models are concerned, well, there are some neat touches like the round headlamp and the tail lamp units, as well as I really like these side panels. The engine covers, basically, they are vented, they're ribbed and vented as were the older models back in the day. And of course the twin pea shooter exhaust, which are also a very neat throwback to the motorcycles of yesteryear. Also, it comes with a very old school ignition system, which is located here just below the tank, as well as this old locking mechanism for the steering. So these are all neat touches, and it all comes together really well with this motorcycle. The fit and finish levels are a lot better on this motorcycle than on the Scrambler. So the split seat is also on the softer side. It's quite accommodating, but I haven't really ridden it over a long distance and over a long period of time to really know how how the seat would fare over a long ride. So that is left to be deciphered, and otherwise it's a very neat and well put together motorcycle.
The Roadster misses out on a good amount of kit that comes stock with its siblings. There's no Bluetooth connectivity, switchable ABS modes, or even any charging sockets for that matter. Even the rear springs are rather simplistic. And strangely, this is the only one of the 3 new Yezdis that features a Zoroastrian symbol on its rear fender.
So it's been a real long day, but we're finally out here with the Yezdi Adventure, our third and final motorcycle that we're going to be testing today. Well, it's the flagship model that Yezdi have on offer currently, and it has all the bells and whistles as far as riding aids and electronics go. This is the only model that has a single upswept exhaust in comparison to the other bikes that we've tested today, and it has the longest wheelbase, it's the heaviest of the 3, and it also makes the most power of the 3 models that Yezdi have on offer currently. Well, of course, Yezdi could have done a lot more differently with regard to the design of this bike. It bears an uncanny resemblance to the Royal Enfield Himalayan. But then again, now we're out here to check on how capable this machine is.
When it came to the Adventure, I particularly liked the tune of the motor with this Yezdi machine as compared to the other 2 models. The torque delivery graph we were shown early on at the presentation indicated that the Adventure put the hammer down in the most relaxed manner initially and peaked out at 30 Nm at 6000 rpm. But it seemed to be very much on point with this machine. acceleration off the line felt more than adequate both on and off the road. The suspension took on absolutely everything that I threw at it with aplomb. So, whether you're the ruffian sorts who prefer to thrash about off road, or the civilized type who's just up for a long, good highway run, this bike will manage it all in real style and comfort. The front end was light enough to easily change direction when on a steep, uneven decline off road, and although it's no razor sharp corner carving machine, it didn't take much effort putting this one through the bends on road either. The adjustable display is a good plus point, but sadly I didn't get to check out the navigation feature on this bike this time around.
So, what's the Yezdi Adventure like to ride? Well, after taking it for off-road throughout to the course of that was planned for us today, well, it's a very comfortable motorcycle, I'll tell you that, and it's a very manageable and predictable motorcycle even over the rough stuff. You have the option of switching off the ABS at the rear, which is fantastic, and it really helps given the amount of power that this motorcycle produces, even low down the power band. And that's a really good thing with this motorcycle, the amount of power on tap. Also, out of all the three, the Yezdi Adventure is definitely the most comfortable of the three. Its travel suspension is longer, and it's got the more complex monoshock unit at the back. And of course, the seat and the ergonomics, it all comes together really well with this motorcycle. Over long distances on the road, I took it for a spin on the road as well, and I really found it to be quite relaxed, the whole riding experience. The engine seems less strained compared to the other two motorcycles that I rode today, and it seems like a very good touring motorcycle at the end of it. Although it's been a long, tiring day, it still feels a bit short-lived after only getting a short stint on all three motorcycles throughout the day. But I am still left with a couple of impressions. Let's start off with the Roadster. Of the three, it is the motorcycle that pays tribute to the Yezdi brand, the motorcycles from the yesteryears, the most, I feel, with its design and all it has to offer. It's a rather simplistic bike, but it's a fun motorcycle to ride nonetheless. Moving to the Scrambler, well, this is the most unique of the three motorcycles. Obviously, there's no motorcycle in this particular category as of now, and it definitely offers a unique proposition given its price point and its capabilities as well. It's a decent off-road machine as well as on-road, not so much so to be honest. But once again, it's a Scrambler that cost you just around a little over 2 lakhs, and with what it has to offer, it seems like a very decent proposition given its price point. Now moving to the Adventure. Well, it's not really unique per se, but it is a fun motorcycle nonetheless, and out of all three, I think I had the most fun on this particular motorcycle. The Adventure, once again, it doesn't do anything spectacularly well, but just with the power it has on tap, its weight, all it brings to the table in terms of features, well, it is a very decent motorcycle. Now, how these motorcycles fare in comparison to the competition in their various segments is yet to be deciphered. We have to ride the competition and these motorcycles back to back. But from first impression wise, well, all these motorcycles really come across as decent products given their price point. And if you're in the market for any of these categories, you definitely should give Yezdi a look through.
All right, so that was Chris bringing you the story on the three new Yezdis. Again, very quick reviews, but seems to be very impressive all around, whether it's the Adventure, the Scrambler, or the Roadster as well. And yes, we will look forward to a comparison story very shortly. I'm going to take a couple of questions that have come up. One, first of all, from Mayur Shah. Mayur is asking us. Yeah, are the Yezdis more vibey than the modern Royal Enfields? And to do that, I'm going to get Chris onto the show again. Chris, can we get you back on the live show? Yes, there you are.
Hello.
Hi, Chris. So you had a long experience and a long day with the three Yezdis, but some more time to be spent because we've got a few questions coming up. And like I just mentioned, Mayur Shah's got a question for us. Of all the three Yezdis, which makes the most sense? So I would assume this would be kind of an all-road motorcycle, all-around motorcycle, something that can be used on a daily basis, also enjoyed otherwise, which would kind of take it out of the Scrambler or the Adventure, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so it pretty much goes down to what you expect or how you ride your motorcycle and what you what you fancy. In fact, there are three very different design styles, three very unique characters of these ESD motorcycles, and yeah, if it's all out road comfort and ride comfort, sorry, that you're looking for, well, I think the the Adventure is the bike that you should really seek out for. If you're like more into the roadster slash cruiser style of motorcycle, well, then you could look at the roadster model that YSD has to offer. But if you're more the outgoing, you like to take it off road, have some fun, experiment a bit with your riding styles, well, then I think the Scrambler will appeal to you. So it all depends on what you expect or what you want with your motorcycle, what you want to do with your motorcycle.
So you wouldn't say, Chris, you wouldn't say that there was a holistic motorcycle, one size fits all kind of a thing within this lot.
So I'd like to think that the Yezdi Adventure pretty much does everything the other two do, and the best part is it's really comfortable. So that's a real plus point because the other two not so much so. Um, I don't know if you checked it out in the video. I also mentioned that the Scrambler, for that matter, it can get a little tiring riding because of the whole ergonomics of it. It's slightly it's slightly it's a little more demanding motorcycle than a motorcycle like the Adventure. It's more relaxed, which is more relaxed and stuff. So if you're going to be spending an entire day in the saddle, yeah, the Adventure is the motorcycle from these three that you will want to be astride.
All right, I'm going to take another question. This one's come up from Apurva. Apurva Chetty is asking us, are the Yezdis more vibey than the modern Royal Enfields?
Not really. It didn't feel so, to be honest. Like, of course, there are a couple of vibrations low down the power band as well. It's not as thrummy, I'd like to say, but the higher you go, it eases out somewhere in the middle of the power band. But then once again, once you cross like around 6,000 RPM, 7,000 RPM, it gets really noisy, and you can really feel the vibrations in your palms and the footrest as well. It's not really upsetting. It's not off-putting by any standard, but of course, if you're going to be really finicky about vibrations and stuff, um, yeah, you're going to feel them at the most at higher RPMs. It didn't feel as vibey as the Himalayans though, as the Enfield. Sorry,
Okay.
the newer generation of Enfields, like say the with the with the Y series engine and everything, they're a lot more refined, to be honest. And yeah, they feel a lot more thrummy, which is nice. But these motorcycles, the SD bikes, have their own character. I mean, they are a throwback to the older generation of motorcycles. I'd like to look at it that way. So from that respect, yeah, it does feel a little more vibey.
All right. Another question for you, of course. Again, Apurva was asking us, and there's another query that he's got, and this is a fairly relevant one also because there's always this question going to be there existing between motorcyclists. Which one do you think is a little more capable, the Yezdi, the Adventure, or the Himalayan?
Who didn't see that one coming, huh? Well, so yeah, so I'd like to think. See, once again, I didn't really spend a great deal of time with the Adventure, but then from what I did off road and what I managed, so I'd like to think that it is equally capable. It's just that the SD has a little more power on tap, so that's something that I really appreciated. So um, you can mess about a little more. It's a little more forgiving. You can power out of certain situations, unlike the Himalayan. So that's something. That's one aspect that I at least could make out. At least one difference, one very blatant difference between the SD and the Himalayan on my short ride with the SD.
All right. Cool. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for answering those questions. And if we've got any other queries, guys, then do send them across to us, and we will respond to those. You can either send those on our Insta handle or on Twitter, or even post them on Facebook. And also during the course of the show, you can keep asking them. I'll at least note them down, and we'll have some answers ready for you. So thank you so much, Chris, and I'll be seeing you very, very soon.
Yep. Cheers, guys. Take care.
All right, guys, time to head on to our next segment. And of course, today, like I mentioned earlier, we've got a fairly important guest, and I just won't say important, someone who's of a very creative bent of mind, someone who's had a very interesting career for that matter, and now is, of course, spearheading global head. He's the head of global design at Tata Motors. Uh, we've got Martin Ulrich on board with us today for the digital show, and I'm going to be talking to him and having this conversation about what exactly is happening, not just behind the scenes, but let's try and understand a little bit more about Martin himself. Uh, Vivek, can we get Martin on? Yes, there he is. Okay, Martin, I'm just going to adjust my screen for a second. Give me that there. Yeah.
Hi.
Well, hi, Martin. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Overdrive Digital Show. It's an absolute pleasure having you with us today. Uh, it is. It must be a cold day in back in Europe, in where back in your offices.
No. We're hard at work. I'm here in the studio, and it's a pleasure to connect with you and just talk shop.
All right, perfect, fantastic. Martin, now you've headed Tata Motors' European Technical Center since 2016. Before settling into your new role as the head of global design for Tata Motors earlier this year. Now,
Mm.
can you tell us what's this transition been like? This all-encompassing role, considering you've been closely involved with Tata's next-gen impact-free design philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, it's been actually quite a natural transition. Obviously, my role and my responsibilities have grown. Not only responsible for the UK design studio, but also now encompassing all three studios in Pune in Italy and in the UK. That encompasses also passenger vehicle and commercial vehicles. So the scope and scale of the role and the responsibility is bigger. But nonetheless, I've been with the company for a number of years. I know the management. They know me. And we had a very successful recipe in terms of our design language. So what we're doing now is we're just looking at how we accelerate and we develop our design DNA going forward because it's an ever-changing market.
Wonderful. So Martin, I mean, you've been with this organization quite some time,
Hmm.
and looking at Tata Motors, it's a fairly young company in global automotive terms, for that matter, compared to at least some of the other its peers across countries and nations. But what is your opinion about the approach to design at Tata Motors? They've got a young portfolio of cars. They're a young company in that sense, but what's the kind of approach that they have?
It is a young company in certain way. At the same time, the name and the group and overall, it has a long heritage, a long history. It has, I would say, a very strong brand value. And of course, the Indian market is extremely dynamic. So we already have a very comprehensive portfolio of products, especially from an SUV point of view. So if you look, we have, a number of nameplates that we're working on and that, already are very successful in the market. So in many ways, it's we've already have a very good foundation on which to work on and develop. We're going to expand our market, we're going to expand our portfolio, and of course, we're going to develop our design DNA and our portfolio going forward. So it is young, but at the same time, there's already a lot of very strong assets that we can build on.
All right. What can you tell us a little bit more about Impact 3.0? What are the elements that you could discuss with us? And because we're really excited to see how this is evolving at Tata Motors. It's a very exciting time, and they've done some fantastic work. We're seeing some great cars that are doing well in the Indian market. But could you share with us what exactly is 3.0, Impact 3.0 right now?
Yeah, so we're working on that generation of products with that, evolution. As I said, we've had a very successful DNA from our design language. So it would be very foolish to tamper with that. But at the same time, we need to evolve that. We need to evolve our products and our design DNA to the next generation. That's why we're terming it 3.0. It's the next step. So when you look at it, what does it mean? Well, it's the methodology of how we design vehicles. And it's also, we're making a clear shift to electrification in terms of powertrain. So it's important that our vehicles and our products communicate that electrification and also the way we develop these vehicles. So there's a large element of digitalization that's happening. Our designers are now working more digitally than they were traditionally in terms of pen and paper. Now that's just a medium. That means the parameters of good design are still there. But there's a real shift in terms of design. We were always told design the product, and now we're designing the experience. So that's a major change of attitude and a major change in terms of the direction of how designers work. So if you think about digitalization, we're going from analog products to digital products. And the way the vehicles communicate that, the way we use them, the way we interface with them, and of course, even the DNA, the language of it, has to capture that. People have to see it, look at it, and it has to communicate that this is a modern product, whether it's a ICE, especially an EV vehicle. So you're going to see that in terms of the surfacing. I always say it'll have digital surfacing. When I have the opportunity, I'll sit down with you and I'll explain what that means. But it means ultimately that the designers were using digital tools to express their ideas. And you can then see that translated into the aesthetic. And then, of course, from an interior point of view, you'll see the way we interface with the vehicle. That will change fundamentally.
Right. Now that you brought up electrification, electric vehicles, and Tata Motors has been doing phenomenally well in India. Singularly, the largest electric vehicle passenger car, at least the passenger car segment, they've been the largest seller of electric vehicles in the country. Do you think electric cars need to carry forward a brand's design ethos, offering styling that's near equivalent to the ICE counterparts? Or do you think this there is more to be gained by branching out with a new design philosophy, some new ideations, trying something entirely new, maybe not wacky, but something radical enough?
Yeah, I mean, the design has to always communicate what it does, what the product does. And as we go into electrification, there will be big opportunities in terms of changing the overall parameters and the packaging of a vehicle. Our architecture, our vehicle architecture is, really driven by the packaging of an engine, transmission, and so forth. And so the layout is all developed around that. As we go into electric vehicles, that will actually free up a lot of space that can be used in a different way. So what you'll see is not only, the aesthetics, the visual styling, has to communicate that it's an electric vehicle, it has to be efficient and so forth. But at the same time, what you'll see is a real sort of liberation from a design point of view in terms of the overall packaging. And that's the really exciting part that we're looking forward to.
So we can expect for future Tata EVs, take a slightly different approach to design.
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely fantastic. I've got a few questions from a few of our viewers over here as well, Martin. I'll just toss them across to you, and they're interesting ones. Specifically to the Indian market, do you think the country's long-standing obsession with all things chrome is fading away? What is a trend you see becoming more popular? Maybe for India. The question was for India, but I'd also say globally in the years to come.
No, definitely. This is a trend I've seen globally, not just in India. And, Chrome used to represent value. It represented a certain status. So, it gave, that sort of tangible extra value that the customer wanted to communicate. Like, look, I have a premium vehicle. I have something that's a little bit extra. Now, that's just a visual. Now, as we go forward, sustainability is a factor. Chroming in terms of the process doesn't really have a very good green footprint. So now there's that aspect of it. And then there's, of course, the visual aspect. So I think as long as we offer the customer the value, the visual entertainment that they want to communicate, because ultimately a vehicle is an avatar as much as anything in terms of communicating your personality, your status, and so forth. If we can give the customer that opportunity, whether it's through lighting, whether it's through different modes, whether it's 2D, 3D, and so forth, I think the customer will naturally segue into that. It's a generational thing as much as anything. And you see that not just in terms of automotive design, but you see it in all aspects of design, that sort of, transition to, different ways of communicating value. So we have a number of ideas that I think, will pretty much, replace, I would say, the traditional aspect of how chroming was done.
Fantastic. Another question coming up is the split headlight DRL treatment that we see on Tata Motors cars. Is that a case of form or function?
It's a little bit of both. Obviously, the functionality, the positioning of the DRL lamps, and then the lamps themselves, that's very much fixed on legislation and also getting the maximum performance out of the lighting system. Not only for the driver who's driving the vehicle in terms of seeing the road, but also for other vehicles to see the oncoming vehicle or pedestrians to see the vehicle. So definitely there's a functionality aspect to it. From a form point of view, obviously, we have a very strong signature humanity line. That is the chrome element that defines our sort of front face DNA. And it was a very natural evolution that we actually made the DRLs an extension of the Humanity line.
Right. I've got a couple of questions more, Martin, for you, and this is more to kind of understand and to know a little better. Martin Uhlrich, the designer at Tata Motors, who's heading global design at Tata Motors. Uh, you know, careers in car design. That's something that's highly spoken about. It's an aspirational subject. It's an aspirational career as well. People, a lot of youngsters are looking towards getting into car design as well. And we've got some
Sure.
fantastic design colleges all across the world, for that matter. Can you take us to some of your highlights, and if you've got any tips for aspiring designers?
I mean, for me, it was a dream come true. I mean, growing up, I was somebody who was a car enthusiast, a petrol head, but at the same time, I had some creative skills and, was drawing cars all the time, but I could never really translate that into a career. So I had the opportunity to discover, that design was actually a career, and, had the opportunity to study in some very, good schools. And then, of course, that launched my career. Over the course of my career, I had the opportunity to, experience a lot of very good products in a lot of very good geographic areas. I said one of the things I would say that was very much a highlight in terms of my career is the fact that it's an international career. I've had the opportunity to work and live in a number of countries. So it's a very cosmopolitan, it's a very eye-opening. And fundamentally, if you want to be creative, you have to be open-minded. You have to be open-minded to new ideas and new ways of thinking. And that's a constant challenge for any designer. Of course, you still have to have the passion for the product, for the design process and so forth. It literally isn't a job. It's more or less a hobby. So I would say that those are the highlights for me in terms of my career, in terms of the international exposure, the sort of, open road. At the same time, the sort of enthusiasm that you have to bring to the profession.
Right. And any tips for aspiring designers, Martin?
Well, the first thing is follow your dreams and believe in yourself. There's a lot of challenges to get into the profession. It's a very small profession globally, and it's very competitive. It's extremely competitive. So you have to have a lot of conviction and a lot of self-belief that you have answers to the questions that people haven't answered yet, and you have to really believe in yourself. That's I think a real foundation of any successful career in our profession.
Right. One last question for you, Martin. Everyone's got their favorite list of cars. What would your three cars be? The ones that you wish you had designed.
That's a very good question. Now, okay, I'll break it down like this. If I had the opportunity, time travel with whatever opportunity that could come in front of me, three cars that I would list in no particular order. The first one would be Porsche 928. So this is a 2+2. Obviously, it was designed It was launched in 1978. But if you look at the design, it's extremely timeless. It's very original, and it also has an emotion to it, but a kind of timeless emotion. So this would definitely be in the the sort of more emotional sort of sports car range. The next vehicle I would put is the Volkswagen T2 T3. It doesn't matter which generation it is, whether it's the transporter or it's the camper van. But I just like the overall purity of that design in terms of what it represented, both functionally and emotionally, if you look at it. It's a real icon. And I love, I studied industrial design before I became a automotive designer. So even over my automotive career, I was an interior designer as much as an exterior designer. So the interior designer part of me and the product designer part of me really gravitates to this vehicle, this product, because if you look at especially the camper van, there's a lot of areas which you can have a lot of fun in terms of the efficiency of packaging, the efficiency of the layout and so forth, and of course what it gives to the customer. So I think I would love to have a crack at redesigning that type of a product. And then the third one, if I was thinking in terms of just not just a premium or sports car, there was a concept done about 20 years ago, and it was called the Ford 012C. It was a collaboration between the Ford Motor Company and Mark Newson. Now, it was seen as just a small footprint vehicle, whether you like the aesthetic or not. But what was interesting about it, it brought a very different point of view to automotive design. It's very simple, very easy to understand in terms of its message. And I think at the same time, it was very modern and very timeless. And it has a lot of character, and I think that's important as well. It's not just a high fidelity of design, but it actually has a personality. So, I mean, I could probably name another 20 cars, that we could talk about.
Well, those three are quite eclectic in any ways.
Yeah, those three are the first three that come to mind. I think the through line through all of them is all of three were trying to, solve a problem, come with the most elegant and simple solution possible. At the same time, there's a certain timelessness to them, but they all also have character. They have to have an identity, that they're not just anonymous. So those would be my sort of first reactions, but I'm sure we could come up with a whole list
So
of
there's
other
a whole
compelling
list.
designs.
I'm sure there's a long list of cars that you'd appreciate, and of course, Martin, thank you for talking to us today and for spending this time with us. It's been an absolute pleasure. We're glad to know you better, and hopefully, as a journalist, I get the opportunity to catch up with you someday soon once we've put this entire pandemic behind us. But all the best, and we wish you a fantastic, path ahead at Tata Motors. And we're waiting to see some of those designs, like you mentioned earlier. Uh, there are exciting times ahead. So thank you again.
Yeah, we really look forward to it, and I really look to see catching up with you with some of the new products that we have in the pipeline.
Absolutely. Bye bye, and thank
It
you.
was my pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. All right, guys, that was Martin Ulrich, and a fantastic conversation with him. But let's get on to the show. And today we've got, yeah, I'm just going to quickly get on to. Give me a second. I had to change screens. There's a lot of stuff that I have to do today, which usually Sony manages the back end of it. Um, but today, well, that's my baby, so I'm trying to do the best I can. Do bear with me. Okay, let's get on to the news. And today we've got the first bit of news is about the BMW M4 Competition, which has been launched in India at 1.43 crores. That's ex showroom pricing. Now that's BMW's 10th high performance M product from the M division in India. Uh, there you see it. Looks pretty interesting, especially with that front end treatment. It's a fairly large grill, but and we've been expecting it for quite some time now. But this is a quick car. Keep that in mind. It's got a 3-liter straight six petrol engine, makes about 510 PS with 650 Newton meters of torque. That's an enormous amount of power out of that. I'd say relatively small motor compared to some of the other giants in BMW's fleet. But that acceleration, well, 0 to 100 kilometers, you can achieve that in just 3.5 seconds. That is pretty quick for a car of this order. 3.5 seconds is really quick. Now, this is also the first model, this is also the first ever M4 to be made available with all-wheel drive. Most of them have all-wheel drive, and this is BMW bringing their X-Drive philosophy to the M4 as well. Fantastic car. Can't wait to drive it. Apparently, BMW still hasn't got a press car in their fleet, but when those calls have already gone out to BMW India, and if they're watching, then well, please expedite delivery of one of those M4s to your press fleet so that, well, we get to drive them. Well, up next, uh, the near production Volkswagen Virtus has been spotted. Now, we've spotted the near production test mule of this upcoming Volkswagen Virtus earlier this week. Now, we expected Volkswagen, I don't really know how to pronounce that word as of now, whether it's Virtus or Virtus. But we expect Volkswagen India to unveil the sedan sometime next month. And the Virtus is, again, the counterpart of Skoda's Slavia, and it will replace the Vento in the brand's lineup. Now, the images show that the Volkswagen Virtus will it'll draw a significant amount of inspiration from larger Volkswagen sedans like the Passat. And as seen with the Kushaq and the Taigun, the Virtus should come with a slightly, significantly different interior aesthetic. Even those more of the switchgear and panels should be, shared with the Slavia. There will be definitely a parts bin where both of these manufacturers will be sharing parts from, so you will see some similarities there. Now, it will also share its engines with the Taigun and the Slavia. The base engine option should be the familiar 1 liter turbo petrol with 115 PS and 175 Newton meters of torque. That should come along with the 6-speed manual and 6-speed automatic options. And the top GT trims will get the 1.5 liter TSI with the, we're assuming, cylinder deactivation coming in over here as well. And that will put out about 150 PS with 250 Newton meters of torque, again combined to a 6-speed manual or a 7-speed dual clutch transmission. Now, we'll be driving the Slavia very, very shortly, so we'd have a rough idea about how even the Volkswagen, the Virtus would, perform. And those images that you saw also were of a left-hand drive vehicle. If you clearly notice that sticker on the rear of the car, those are left-hand drive versions, which means this car will also be exported to global markets. Again, expanding Volkswagen's footprint for more affordable cars across the globe, and of course, making their manufacturing business here in India profitable. Up next, we've got the Tata Altroz, the Dark Edition XT, which was announced, which was launched to celebrate Tata Altroz's second anniversary. They've expanded the hatchbacks lineup by launching this Dark Edition. It's a trim version, it's a trim change, but looks pretty impressive. And Tata Motors has been doing a lot of the Dark Editions in recent times. Well, keeps the interest high. And of course, well, all of these dark cars look pretty impressive, especially with all of that upholstery inside the interiors of the car, even the exterior bits with all those black elements. Looks quite impressive. Now, the Altroz can be had with the blacked out package in its mid-spec XT trim and in the top XC Plus diesel variant. Prices begin from 7.96 lakhs for the Altroz Dark XT. Now, the Altroz Dark Edition adds a Cosmo Black exterior body color. Cosmo Black. And these names keep getting interesting. While the interior get a contrasting black and blue theme with granite black upholstery. So you've got Cosmo Black on the outside, you've got granite black on the inside, and you've got gloss black highlights. Now, the tri-arrow perforations and stitchings are in a contrasting blue. Why would they do that? You could do a perfectly, I don't know, some other kind of black with the contrasting stitching, but the blue definitely looks attention grabbing. Right. So that was all that we had time for on news. At least those big highlights from this week's news. I'm going to take out those questions now. All of you guys that you've got for us. Very quickly going to go through and see what are the questions that have cropped up by now. Yeah. All right. Let me take this first one. Of course, guys, Apurva JD. Apurva's noticed that Sohini has been missing in action. Well, yes, she is tied up today. Apurva she's been at home and she's taking care of a few things and unable to join the show today with us. But you will see her next weekend. Mayusha, when will you guys get the Porsche Taycan for a test drive? Mayur, we've driven the Porsche Taycan before. I drove it in some fantastic winter conditions in the Scandinavian regions, and that was a fantastic experience. But we are driving the Taycan, and we will have that story for you very shortly. We're driving, in fact, in the next couple of days, and next weekend, hopefully, we will get that story out on the digital show as well. Sunil Prasad has asked us, do you think Maruti is going to discontinue the CS since the sales of the sedan has been falling? And, plus the new blueprint of Maruti only mentioned UVs and no sedans. Well, there is quite a strong likelihood that the CS could be discontinued, but it will also be replaced by an all-new car. Keep in mind, there's a whole new slew of products coming out from Maruti in the market, and they're getting very aggressive. Up next, of course, is you will have seen a lot of teasers about the new Baleno. It's been refreshed considerably, and I can't tell you much about it. We've had conversation with them, but a lot of it is under embargo. But we will be driving the cars very soon. Just about a week ahead from now, week to 10 days is when we'll be driving the cars, and we will have a report for you soon after that as well. Yash is asking us, he's booked the MG ZS EV. Should we upgrade my booking to the new one? Yes, Yash, I would recommend you do that. Upgrade your booking, get the new one. There are a host of changes, not just the cosmetic ones. It looks considerably different from the previous generation ZS EV, but also in the range, the powertrain, all of that has improved considerably, and there's several new features as well. So, my recommendation: definitely upgrade your booking to the newer one. I think it should be quite promising. We've got another question between Prabhan Katesar. Prabhan's asking us, can we expect sub 10 lakh electric cars? Prabhan, yes, you can expect sub 10 lakh electric cars. That is the end goal. That is the long-term plan, simply because not everybody can afford premium electric vehicles, and while we have the option of some fancy ones from time to time, but yes, the larger part of the market out in India will require sub 10 lakh rupee electric vehicles, and those are coming. Tata Motors is already making an attempt to bring that price down, and they have democratized to quite an extent electric vehicles, especially with the Tigor EV. But there will be a lot more cars coming out, not just from Tata Motors, but also from Mahindra and various other manufacturers who are going to go down the EV route. What you do need to understand is at this point in time, technology is still a little expensive. Batteries, especially are very expensive. And as scale grows, batteries will become more affordable, which means manufacturers will be able to get down prices for electric vehicles and, of course, get electrification of smaller cars, sub 4 meter segments essentially. That will make it a lot more affordable. So, yes, we will have sub 10 lakh rupee electric cars in the Indian market. Bhargav M's got a question for us. Why are most sports cars imported from other countries and not made in India? In the luxury space, are dual clutch gearboxes better than top inverters? All right, interesting question, Bhargav. Okay, let me look at it like this. The volumes of sports cars are very, very small now, and this is across the globe, right? So what happens is the manufacturer decides that there is one particular market or one particular country where he's got a manufacturing unit where he will manufacture those cars because the volumes are low. Let's take the exact example: Lamborghini, who makes 100,000 cars a year. Lamborghini cannot afford to manufacture this in every nation, even though China has got one of the larger markets for Lamborghini, or USA for that matter as well. North America has got a very large market. Europe, not so big as these two nations, but it cannot afford to have a manufacturing unit, just in both in the US and of course in China that manufacture. It's simpler for them to do this because the scales are just very, very, very low. That is why a lot of cars, sports cars, essentially, and this is across, like I said, it's across the globe. They're manufactured in one place and then exported to various markets across the world, and that's how it exists in India as well. That's why we import those cars into India. It just does not make sense to manufacture them in India, and that is essentially one of the challenges that Tesla is facing. This is the hot topic because Tesla has been asking for a lot of subsidies and a lot of concessions to offer premium electric vehicles in India, and that's also because the Teslas that come down to India, it's a Model 3, whether it's a Model X, Model Y, whatever it comes out for that matter, even the Cybertruck at some point in time, it will be fairly expensive. This will be beyond the reach of not just the common man, but even the middle class or even the upper middle class for that matter. They will not be able to afford a Tesla very easily. It will be fairly expensive in that sense. And that's also because those cars will be imported into India. So, well, CBU import duties are quite high as of now, and that raises prices considerably. Now, this also means that volumes are not there for that market as for that product in this particular market as of now. And essentially, is what the government is telling Tesla is that if you're able to manufacture the cars in India, then of course it will democratize your cars. You'll be able to target them at a lower price point, and that means there will be a lot more takers for Teslas. So now the ball is in Tesla's court, whether they want to manufacture the cars in India or not. So far, what they're insisting on is imports, in which case it's only fair that the Indian government applies those import duties. This has got nothing to do with protecting your domestic manufacturers. If you look at it, every other manufacturer has invested a fair amount of money in the Indian market. Even Mercedes-Benz today, they are a largely CKD operation, which means kits come from overseas and then they're assembled here in India. And who knows, sometime more ahead in the future as well, they possibly will also manufacture. There are a lot of components that go into a lot of Mercedes-Benz cars that are manufactured right here in India. There are several vendors that they've got manufacturing these parts here in India, and those are exported to, well, the parent company, to where the parent, or rather the parent manufacturing unit, and those are put in those cars and they come back into India, of course, inside that car again. But that's a long, complicated process. But nonetheless, investments have been put by various manufacturers into this market, and they're all looking forward, and they all will at some point in time manufacture, make right here in India. This will happen; it's inevitable. But for certain manufacturers, yeah, they need to decide if they want volumes and scale. Then they will have to make those cars in India before they can get those scale. Before they can scale up their business. In the luxury space, are dual clutch gearboxes better than top converters? Not necessarily, not in the luxury space. The dual clutch transmissions, of course, certainly work better where you want cars with quicker responses, you want faster engine responses for that matter, you want that torque to be delivered to your driven wheels in a much faster way. That's where the dual clutch transmissions come in handier. So, any car with a slightly more performance edge to it, that's where the dual clutch gearbox works best. Otherwise, in the luxury space, we're looking for just comfortable ride, space, cars like the S Class, GLS, the Q8, Q7, things like that. I mean, a regular torque converter just works as well as a dual clutch gearbox. You want a refined, comfortable, smooth drive quality, and that's what a torque converter can give you. Uh, Right. Atul Binoy. Mahindra has teased their Born EV portfolio. Any details regarding range and price? Well, Atul, okay. Mahindra has already mentioned this quite early on that they've got a fairly large portfolio of electric vehicles coming out in the Indian market, some of which will be entirely new products, some of which will be, existing products in the Indian market that will be electrified for the market. Case an example, the KUV 300. We're going to see that. So yes, these there is a lot of stuff coming out. The range and price again. What I'm expecting to see is a price range anywhere between about that 12 to about 18 lakh rupees, probably up to 20 lakh rupees. But let's see. Right now, what we do know is that there is a global semiconductor shortage. There are global supply chain issues as well, and because of which a lot of manufacturers, including Mahindra, are affected and they're not able to supply or rather deliver products to their consumers. Now that trend is changing, but it's a very slow moving trend. And in this environment, there is really no predicting at what point Mahindra will be able to introduce a new product into the market, and not earn the ire of their consumers. As it stands, the XUV700 or even the Thar for that matter, there are significant delays in delivering those products to their owners. And Mahindra definitely does not. We know that Mahindra definitely does not want to be in a situation. So, but they are trying as hard as they can to correct this situation. We do know there will be delays. So we're not entirely sure, or we can't really be predictive about what. What we do know is that one of the first products that will come out will be the 300, the XA 300 with the electric platform, and then of course there will be the others following in very shortly. But I guess by the mid of this year, by the mid of 2022, we have a lot more information on what the electrification plans are looking like, as in what is the structure, what products will come out, and so on and so forth. Prabhan Katesar has asked us, when can we expect sub 10 lakh cars or SUVs on our roads? Can we do long distance on these? Prabhan, there are plenty of sub 10 lakh rupee SUVs on our roads. And just go through Overdrive's buyer's guide, and you will see there are plenty of choices for you there, Prabhan. Um, Anish Thomas, decision to get a new two-wheeler EV is getting difficult with promises of better products coming in future. What would you recommend? Wait for something better or buy now? Ether 450X now or Torque Kratos? Well, Anish, let me put it like this to you. Even we are waiting to review the Torque Kratos. Okay, that's been in the pipeline for quite some time now, and we're still waiting. And though there have been a lot of announcements about that product in recent times, we do know that there still are delays. We still haven't got a test motorcycle, and while the test is supposed to happen in the coming week, for instance, we're still not confirmed on the exact date, and there's been a lot of back and forth between Torque and Kratos, between Torque and us. Now, Ether 450X, again, established product, a good product, and a good reputable company at this point in time with a great, well, I'd say a great backup program as well for the consumers. They've got the infrastructure in place, they've got a good product in place, and it's a smart company. They're doing the right things. I think you're not just buying a product at the end of the day, you're also buying it in the philosophy and the character of a company. And I think today, Ather has probably one of the soundest characters in this EV two-wheeler space. So yes, certainly the Ather 50X, great product. You can read that review, you can watch that review on Overdrive as well. But that is the one I would certainly recommend to you. All right, do we have any more questions? Well, I think this is largely what we've had, queries that we've had. So, guys, I'm going to call it a night today because, well, Sohini is not around. And it's, well, it's the weekend and I got to head out as well. But it's time to check out what's on the Overdrive TV show on CNBC TV 18 tomorrow. And that's coming to you at 1 p.m. We've taken the new Yezdi motorcycles for a spin, and we've protested the new MG Astor. So those two are the big stories on the weekend show on CNBC TV 18. Do tune in, watch that. You can also catch a repeat telecast of the Overdrive show on Sunday at 12:30 or at 8 p.m. or live stream the show on cnbctv18.com/live-tv. You can also catch all the stories on our YouTube channel. Handles are very mad where you are right now. And we'll see you next week. Drive safe, ride safe, and have a great weekend, guys.